Hi there. Today's movie is The Godfather, and a series recently shown which is based on the making of the Godfather movie, and also a book which gives the background to the making of the Godfather movie, all from separate sources. So the TV series, which is from Paramount, who made The Godfather, is The Offer. And it's based on the memories of Al Ruddy, who was the producer. Now, he started his career in the Rand Corporation, but quickly got very, very bored with that, went into television, and was the driving force behind Hogan's Heroes, which I remember watching as a lad. And then was taken on by Paramount under Robert Evans, who was the head of production at Paramount Studios, who had previously been an actor and was responsible for many great films. Most recently, he had given us Love Story, which was a major smash, and he was responsible for turning Paramount's fortunes to a large extent. So the project that they worked on together was The Godfather, taken from the book by Mario Puzo. Now, to be quite honest, I have read the book. I read it when it came out. Didn't like it. There was some good stuff in it, and that good stuff was extracted to make the movie. And you can see how that was done in this series, The Offer, where the characters of Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola cooperate, but it's mainly the work of Coppola adapting it. And I mean, one of the immediate things is he doesn't start where the book starts. He starts with the wedding and with the I Love America speech. So his vision really was the important thing in making The Godfather. And Francis Ford Coppola was a controversial choice to be director because he didn't really have much of a track record. But as it turned out, he was an enormous talent, and his subsequent career underlined that. One of the things that he insisted on, and he didn't really have a lot of power, but what power he did have, he used, was to have Al Pacino play Michael. Al Pacino was pretty much an unknown at the time, and the studio preferred a lot of more heavyweight names, people like Robert Redford were mentioned, and they went through a whole process, and eventually the studio had to give in. And Pacino obviously made the role what it was, and is Michael. The other casting choice that he tried to pursue was Marlon Brando as the Godfather. Now, everyone A, thought that Brando wasn't a good choice, and B, that he wouldn't do it anyway. But it turned out that Brando really was short of money. Plus, he liked the book and agreed to do it. Now, in my opinion, I never liked Brando. I think he ruined so many good films. Not just him, but all the people from the method school, from the Actors Studio. They ruined loads and loads of movies. You know, that way they had of living the part and agonizing over motivations and things. And, you know, as Sir Laurence Olivier said to one of them, just simply act, dear boy. You know, it's not difficult. if you're an actor. But I must say that Marlon Brando nailed the part, and he was Don Vito, and it was very convincing, and it was a very good choice. So Francis Ford Coppola did see something in Brando. The series, The Offer, shows the difficulties of filming in New York. The studio wanted them to do it in LA, but again, Coppola insisted the architecture, etc., particularly since it was just after World War II, where it was being set, and doing it on backlots was not the same, so he wanted authentic streets and so on. But there was a lot of problems, and one of the problems was that the Italian community, or Italian American community based in New York, were very resentful of the book, and of a lot of the previous films and books which had talked about the mafia, and they didn't like it. And members of the Anti-Defamation League actually kidnapped newspaper delivery drivers, locked them in the vans and set fire to them to prove that they were not criminals. But Al Ruddy came to sort of truce or an agreement with Joe Colombo, one of the leading figures of the non-existent mafia, and by giving a lot of the guys jobs and so on, and removing the word mafia from the script, they came to some sort of accord, and the movie went ahead in New York. There was quite a few really, I mean, the whole industry is full of strong characters. Matthew Goode, who's an English actor, plays Robert Evans to a T. He's absolutely amazing. There's another character, Charlie Bluedorn, who was the head of Gulf Western, which is the company that owned Paramount, and he's shown to be an absolute dynamo, a tyrant, a person who is quick to make decisions, very, very much motivated by making money, but really did come on side as a supporter for the project, and his portrayal in the series is fantastic. He's a real character. There's a Colin Hanks character, and this shows that the offer is not 100% factual, because the Colin Hanks character, who's a major character, in fact didn't exist. Now, another character, another actor was Al Lettieri, who played Solonzo, had a major part, and he was kind of the major villain in it. Now, Al Lettieri had a really short but very, very glorious career. Besides The Godfather, he was in The Getaway, where he played a really bad character, and Mr. Majestic, a similar bad character. He also wrote the movie Villain, about London crime, starring Richard Burton, and he was studying Wing Chun, Kung Fu, with a chap that Terry and I trained under. We used to do Wing Chun classes with him. He came over to Liverpool, Alan Lamb, and he was training Al. But unfortunately, he died very young, and his performance in The Godfather shows that he would have been a major star. Overall, it's a fascinating series. You've got to realise that some of it is fictitious, but the story itself is such that it grips you And for all fans of movies, and particularly The Godfather, it's must-watch television, and a really big, well done. I was really hooked on it. I recommended it to lots of people. Now, following this, it made me want to read a book. I thought Al Ruddy had written a book. He hadn't, but the nearest thing I got was the book Leave the Gun, Take the Cannoli, which quotes many sources to give a different version of the making of The Godfather. And for example, some of the things that are in the offer are diametrically untrue according to the book. For example, Robert Evans in the offer, he has an argument with his wife, Ali McGraw, because she wants to go and film in The Getaway. And the truth was, he persuaded her to do it because he was going to spend so much time on The Godfather that he wanted her to have a project to occupy her time. And similarly, there's a character who's a spy on set in a production department called Jack Ballard. And in the offer, he is a spy for Gulf Western, for Charlie Bluton. And in the end, Francis Ford Coppola, Al Ruddy and Robert Evans all together give him the bad news and fire him. The reality was he was actually working directly and had been placed by Robert Evans. So, versions of the truth. The book also goes into a lot of detail about the actor who played Luca Brasi, and the actor he wasn't really an actor, he was a wrestler, Lenny Montana, who was actually a member of organised crime. He was an enforcer, and he was every bit the kind of Luca Brasi character, and some of his escapades are mentioned in the book. The title of the book, Leave the Gun, Take the Cannoli, is actually one of the most memorable quotes from the film that Clemenza says as he leaves the scene where they just killed Paulie. And the Leave the Gun was in the script, and Clemenza added Take the Cannoli because they just picked up some cannoli just as an ad lib, and of course it's one of the most memorable lines in the film. Okay, so interesting book as well. Then I'll just finish by talking about the film itself. At the time The Godfather was made, gangster movies were regarded as being a bit passé, and the studio didn't really appreciate what it had really until they saw the massive queues around the cinemas when it opened. The length of the film was always an issue. The casting, as I've said, they didn't like many of the cast members, and the studio had deep reservations. However, the immediate audience reaction to The Godfather was massive, and it became possibly the best-selling movie of all time. If you go on numbers of views rather than box office, ticket prices go up all the time. But that isn't really the measure, because some terrible films make a lot of money. All the stuff that's being made now, all the superhero stuff and the fantasy stuff makes a lot of money. Doesn't mean that they're really great films, memorable films. The Godfather is, because it transcended the genre, and it worked on so many different levels. It appealed to all viewers, male and female. It didn't restrict its audience, even though it was a long film, and the Paramount insisted to the theatres that it was shown without an intermission, and the theatres wanted an intermission so they could sell popcorn. People tolerated it, not just tolerated, but didn't realise how long the film was. I watched it when it came out. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it since. It's my favourite movie of all time. I go between Godfather and Godfather 2. They're both amazing films. And with the same people, Francis Ford Coppola, to be responsible for two such superb films in itself is quite a fantastic feat. So if you enjoyed The Godfather, if you enjoy movies, I'm sure you like The Offer, and I'm sure you like the book Leave the Gun, Take the Cannoli.